Hey everyone, week 4. We're going to be going over chapters 8 and 9. Before I get into the assignments, I want to make sure that I highlight a couple things. Obviously, chapter 8 is race in sports, and that is what we are going to be focusing on. There has been so much going on in society with the Black Lives Matters movement and George Floyd, and we could spend weeks discussing everything that's going on. But this class is based on looking at society through the sports lens and how does sports affect society. So that's going to be our main focus, okay? With that being said, the amount of things going on in sports related to race, it's unbelievable. The NBA players have been kind of going back and forth whether they should be playing during this time. We have NASCAR getting rid of the Confederate flag. We have obviously the NFL is still discussing how are they going to navigate kneeling with the national anthem. We also have college teams such as Oklahoma State dealing with head coaches and coaching staff, wearing a t-shirt. I put an article in there. You'll be able to read it later. The University of Iowa, we've already touched on. I mean, the list just goes on. And we talked about Drew Brees a couple weeks ago. And when he came out and said something, I mean, there is so much going on in sports with race that it's kind of hard to squeeze it all into 1 week. But I did want to make sure that I highlight that this week's going to look a little bit different. So when you look at the assignments on Monday, you're going to be reading chapter 8 and reviewing the PowerPoint presentation. And then I put 2 articles that you are to read, okay? So those are there. And those really kind of highlight the history of the national anthem, why we have them at sporting events and why they get played there. So there's 2 different articles there. It also highlights, why people are kneeling. Now, the one article is from 2017, and so a lot has changed since then, but I put it in there on purpose still because it'll be interesting for you to read something that was written 2 years ago, 2.5 years now almost ago, and the viewpoints on kneeling and what you're hearing now. On Tuesday, you are going to read through a whole slew of articles. You're going to be looking at some Instagram quotes I put in there. Also, I have a YouTube video. It's just all stuff going on in sports, and I try to put in one section. That's what you're going to do on Tuesday. Wednesday, you're going to read chapter 9, review the PowerPoint slides, and the discussion questions aren't due till Wednesday this week. Wednesday, you get a whole extra day. Thursday, you just have the peer responses due. That's it. And then on Friday, this is where things are a little bit different. You are going to be handing in 2 different things. You're going to obviously be handing in your personal reflections. That will be in the forum like you always do. What did you learn about in both chapters? Make sure you talk about both chapters. We're kind of starting to slide away from that, where you're kind of just picking one thing, talk about both chapters in that personal reflection. You're also going to hand into the coursework section a 1-page paper writing specifically on what you've learned over these last couple weeks about race in sports. So what do I want you to directly talk about? I want you to talk about the national anthem and kneeling. What have you learned over the last couple weeks that maybe you didn't know before, or maybe you just learned with the material that I gave you? What is new that you've learned? And then I want you to write about, in your view, your lens, and how you're seeing things, how are sports reacting to the Black Lives Matter movement? What things are people doing right now? What is your perception of not just professional teams, but college teams and everywhere else? What is your perception right now? How are sports reacting to race and what is currently going on in our society? So that's a 1-page paper due on Friday. So if you notice though, there's no quiz this week. Yay! I've changed it up a little bit because I think it's really important that we start to have a dialogue and we start listening and learning, and I want you to really reflect on things that you've taken away over the last couple weeks. Make sure our peer responses are appropriate, and you guys are doing a really good job with that. Be respectful, as we continue to potentially venture down roads of different opinions. So please, 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 I won't tolerate anything attacking each other. At the same time, I want them to be appropriate. Last little thing on a random note, your current events last week were great. We will have another current event due later on, but they were really, really good. A lot of you wrote about the Astros and cheating, and that is like a huge scandal. Last thing I want to touch on is, as I mentioned earlier, we will be discussing COVID-19. That's going to be towards the end of our 6 weeks. So I'm very much aware COVID-19 is affecting sports in a huge way, and we have not talked about it yet. Be on the lookout for it on week 6. So keep up the good work. You guys, at this point you have week 4. We're really starting to kind of get to the tail end of things. Make sure you're working on your group projects, okay? Don't leave them till the last minute. It's a 100-point presentation. You want to make sure those are good too. Let me know if you have any questions.